Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is when you're watching this video. Thank you very much for coming back for a new YouTube video. This one's quite an interesting one. We haven't got the weather, but we have got a lot of kit to show you. We've got these panels behind me here. So we've got some Perlite 455s. We've got a Tesla Powerwall, and we've got some solar panels on some trackers where they move depending on where the light is. So we're going to show you all of that, but also we're going to show you installing an expansion pack to this Powerwall 3. So before we go through any of this lovely kit, let's get straight into that part where we're going to show you how we install this Powerwall 3 expansion pack. So, I'm going to fit this expansion pack now, and I'm cable tying this armoured cable here. Now, this is not a long-term solution. This is just to keep it out of my way, because previously this armoured cable came up here, and I need to put my expansion pack here. So, if you ever see me doing this, right, this is kind of something I want all of you to check me on. If you ever see me doing this as just a normal part of my work, please unfollow me, and please report me to the electrical police, because if I ever care, if my care of this job ever falls to a point where I'm doing this as standard, then I shouldn't be doing this job anymore. But yeah, before you all come at me, that's just to stop it kind of dropping in behind the battery as we try and fit it. So we're going to put the expansion pack just here, same height as the Powerwall 3, but I'm just a little bit squeezed for space here, so I'm just trying to get that, get a few things just shuffled around to make the space. You can see here, because this job is actually so recent, we've still got a few little chalk marks on the wall where we tried to make sure there was the space. See, we've got a pink mark here and a pink mark here. And this is when we had a little look to try and put this original Powerwall 3 in a position where we could easily fit an expansion pack. So we kind of thought it was maybe going to come, maybe not this soon, but over the course of the next year or so. So yeah, just moving this armoured cable here, and then I can re-secure this up the side of the expansion pack when that's in place. So yeah, I'm going to measure where this expansion pack is going to go now. So I've got this Tesla unwrapped, as you can see, and I've got the bracket out. And what I'm doing now is I want to make sure that this expansion pack is sat at the same height as my other Powerwall 3, just because so it looks good. So what I'm doing here is I've put the bracket in place where it's going to sit when it's attached to the Powerwall, and then measuring from the top of my Powerwall to the top of the bracket, and it's bang on 310 mil. So that means I can measure down from where the level is of the existing Powerwall 3, and then I know and put a line on the wall, and I know if I measure 310 mil from my level point at the top down, I just have to make sure that this bracket sits at 310 mil on this top edge, and then I know when I put my Powerwall on, it should be bang on level. So yeah, let's see if it works. So we've got our bracket on the wall now, and I've got my mark here which I've leveled across with we're using my level there. So I'm now 310 mil, like we saw, to the top of my bracket, to the top of the battery. So when we sit this battery on now, we should run through level. But I've got this all secured with concrete screws straight into the stone, 70 mil concrete screws. I ain't going anywhere. You can see here we've got our ducting for our PV Ultra. Because the battery is sitting up off the floor here, because it does get this part of the house can flood a little bit. These Teslas can withstand flooding up to is it about a metre of flooding, something like that, but it's basically about halfway that can withstand flooding. So that's why this customer wanted to go for the power walls instead of any other battery. So that was I think it's the first one we've had where it's a case of my house can flood, so I want a battery that can withstand it. So that was quite interesting. So we're going to get this mounted on here now, and then I've got a little energy lead that's going to go between the two, but I'll show you those in a minute when we get this battery on the wall. Right, so myself and Dan the video man have just lifted this up. I've just lifted this up onto the wall, and yeah, it was good fun. So like I said before with this one, we've lifted them well up off the floor because of the risk of flooding here. But yeah, they're now exactly the same height, those two power walls, and you can see inside this expansion pack what there is, and it's basically just like just a completely sealed unit. So this one here doesn't have the inverter in, doesn't have the tacho in, doesn't have anything like that. It is literally just the battery modules and the BMS for the battery. I would assume. I think it has its own BMS. I don't think it uses the power walls, the main power walls one, but I might be wrong on that. But we've got that on and installed. So now I'm going to take this little connector off here, and it has one of these at either side, depending on which side of the power wall you need to connect the lead into. And then I've got this. So I've got this lead here, which if I unwrap, you can get this off. So you can see here, you can see that we've got some spade connectors. So they're going to go into the battery, the main power wall there, and basically plug those together like that. And that will give us, that will allow these two batteries to see each other, but also it will be able to send the power into or out of this battery into the main one and effectively double the capacity. We've got 13.5 kilowatt hours of usable capacity on each one. So we've doubled the capacity just by adding this one power wall. So yeah, I'm going to get that all sorted now. There's another glass cover to go on here as well, which we're going to do, and hope that hasn't smashed in the van, which I don't think it has. Get all that installed now, and then we can recommission this Tesla and make sure that this expansion pack works with the new Tesla Powerwall. So with these expansion packs, there's a couple of different ways you can actually fit them. So we're doing what's called a wall mount for obvious reasons, but you can do a stacking kit, and that, a bit like the Powerwall 2s, you can stack in front of the original Powerwall. And that means if you're short of wall space, but you've got the depth in your garage or on your external wall or wherever it is, then you can sit the Powerwall in front of the system. So the main Powerwall goes at the front all the time. So this would actually go behind that. So it's a little bit, depends how you view it really. It can be a little bit more work because you've got to effectively take this Powerwall off the wall, fit this one behind it, and then fit this one back in front. But you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much more work. That's why in the manuals, Tesla tell you to leave some slack on the AC and the DC cables, so you don't have to replace all of those. But yeah, sometimes you kind of roll that dice a little bit and go, well, it's going to look terrible, and the customer might never actually even get an expansion pack. So I can't leave like 3 meters of slack on the AC cable because in the future they might end up getting an expansion pack. So it's a bit of a toss-up whether or not you do that or not. But for ourselves, we try to do that if as long as it doesn't ruin how it looks, because we're vain like that. We want these systems to look good. People are spending a lot of money, we want them to look good, and obviously want them to work well. So that's all very important to us. But I've got the glass cover on now. The only annoying thing with these expansion packs is that the Tesla logo doesn't light up. It does on that one because that's got an AC connection going into it and it's got all the tacho and everything, whereas these ones, they don't light up, which is a bit of a shame. But again, if you were stacking it, you wouldn't really see that because the main Powerwall body is in front. So I suppose that's one disadvantage of having it wall mounted, but depends how much you value that sort of thing. So I'm going to disconnect the system now, turn it all off, just to allow me to connect my lead into the system without it being live there as such. So I'm going to connect this all in now, and like I mentioned, I've got the little 1/2 meter lead, but you can get, I think this is it's a 2 meter lead, this one. This is a 2 meter lead, so if for example we needed to put this right at the other side of this building, we could. I mean, that's the 2 meters, that won't be long enough, but you can get a 4 meter lead as well. So there is a bit of flexibility on how these are wired in terms of where the expansion pack goes. Obviously, when you're using the stacking kit, the 1/2 meter lead is more than enough because it just comes to the battery in front. It's going to be more than enough for us here as well because it's literally sat side by side. But if it was any further than what we've got it here, we'd need the 2 meter or potentially the 4 meter lead. But yeah, there's plenty of options there, depending on where you need to stack it, the expansion pack to go. So we've got the expansion pack on now. That's all wired up. We will have a little look at this harness in a minute that we've got in place. But I've recommissioned the system now to show it that we've got this expansion pack. It's done an update to make sure the expansion pack is on the latest firmware from Tesla. And now the system is balancing. Because we've got, I think this battery is about 84, 85% when we got here. And this one, I'm not too sure what percentage this is on. So what the system is doing now is it is balancing the two sets of batteries to make sure that all the cells are the same voltage, just to make sure that everything's nice and secure. So you can see on here that we're now balancing up there. The solar PV is turned off for a bit whilst it's doing the balancing. You can see there it's actually discharging at 11 kilowatts because the customer is trying to use as much of the power in the house because the battery is forcibly discharging, trying to use as much of it in his electric heaters, his dishwasher's on, literally every light is on, everything is on in the house, which is actually really helping us because we've got an export limit on this site of 5 kilowatts. So the more he can use in the house, we're able to discharge this at 11.04 kilowatts. So it's actually going to mean that this balances quicker because we are withdrawing more power out of this quicker. So just waiting for that to do its thing. And then once it's balanced, it'll then drop into a standard self-consumption mode or whatever the mode is that the customer had this system set up as before we came and fitted this expansion pack. But yeah, that's the expansion pack done. A little wipe down, little sticker on it. I've re-clipped my cable up here as well now, so that's nice and neat. Whilst I'm here, I'll take the opportunity to show you a couple of different components we have. So we've got two DC isolators. One is for the house string, which we'll have a look at shortly, and the other one is for the string down at the solar trackers down in the allotment in the field part, which we'll have a look at next. Those are both two local isolation points. The trackers down in the field also have a local isolator, which we'll have a look at as well. But that's our DC isolation. We've then got our AC isolation, which is this big 63 amp rotary AC isolator, and that is fed by our 16mm 3-core armoured. This system we've got full DNO on this to allow this Tesla Powerwall 3 to discharge at 11.04 kilowatts. So we needed to be able to switch that full load if we have to. So that's why we've got that size isolator. Now, this site has got a 5 kilowatt export limit. So the only way that this reaches 11.04 is if we want to export power and use a load of power in the house, or if the house has that level of power that it needs. How often is it actually going to hit 11.04? Probably quite rarely, but it's got the ability to. And the DNO will only ever receive 5 kilowatts back from the system. So even if we add another set of panels, which is planned on this property when they do the extension, we've got the third MPPT in here, just up on this corner here, and that will allow us to feed this with even more solar PV, which is really cool. So that's what we've got out here. We've also got an earth rod, which is just behind me in a little pit. We'll have a little look at that in a minute. And that is fed underneath this gravel, which all this is going to get put back down and into the earth pit there. And that earth cable goes all the way back to the gateway, which again, we'll have a look at in a minute. Our internet connection is hardwired, and that is, the router is literally on the other side of this wall, which was really nice for a change to have it so local. We've then got a comms cable from here that goes all the way back to the gateway, which again, we'll have a look at the gateway shortly. All of that makes this Tesla Powerwall system work, and the customer is over the moon so far with how it's been working. So much so, we've installed this bad boy today. So now we've had a look at all this up here, let's head down to the allotment and have a look at those panels on those solar trackers. So we're down at the allotment, if you like, and this is where we've got these two solar trackers. This is something that the customer had already before we came and did the Tesla install. He's moved them down here, they were up near the house, and he's installed them down onto this concrete pad that was already here. Now, there are 6 400 watt panels on these, so it's 2.4 kilowatts of capacity. Well, the difference with these is that they are solar trackers. So there is a little light sensor and a little wind sensor on each one of these. And if it wasn't so dark and also so windy, these could be unstrapped and then they would follow and find where the lightest position would be. Now, that really helps with the amount of generation. It's all powered from its own little solar panel and its own little battery to power the actuator to move these panels into a different position. Now, they are light sensitive, so it's not a case of where it's a fixed system where it starts at one point and by the end of the day it ends at this point. It will actually tilt and move to get the best light. Now, that has really helped them generate more than if it was just a static one. The amount of generation that these produce is unreal, even when we compare it to the ones on the house. So it's a shame that I can't show you these in full bloom, if you like, because it's so dark and so windy, but this is just something that's really nice and different. We are about 100 metres of cable away, or just short of that, from the house and where those Tesla Powerwalls are. So these two are on their own string, so it's a string of 2.4 kilowatts, and that comes down in a 10mm PV Ultra cable. The customer kindly dug the duct back up to the house, and then that comes through into our duct here, up a unistrut leg, and then into a local DC isolator just here. That then comes back out of that and up and into our array, if you like. I'll then put some cable tray along the ground, which then links the two trackers together so that this is all one string. We had to be conscious of the number of MPPTs that we had and the startup voltage. So in an ideal world, we maybe would have wanted these on their own separate strings so they could work independently of each other, or if one of these fails, it doesn't affect the generation of the other one. But the customer's planning an extension and wants to keep one of the MPPTs free for that. So we had to make that assessment and go, well, we'll put both of these trackers on one string. Like I said, that comes into this DC isolator up, and so this DC isolator is local isolation. There's another one of these up at the house end, so we can locally isolate it at the battery or out here to work on these panels for whatever reason. We've used some of the AC Cable Solutions duct seal here. That gives us a really nice finish, but also a really nice seal. It's weatherproof and it's rodent proof. So rather than just silicon in it and shoving some bit of cardboard or something down the duct to pack it out, we've got some proper foam bullets that we use to put in there, and I'll show you those when we go back up to the house. But that gives us a really good, nice, tight seal that we can drill through this, or I think an apple core is what they said is the best thing to do. Apple core through it and then run another cable in it. This duct has not been designed for that because it's only 80mm. If you had like a 4, 5, 6 inch duct, then and you wanted to seal it, then you can use the solution from AC Cable Solutions and then re-enter the duct in the future if you ever wanted to. So yeah, these are really cool, and hopefully we can do a follow-up video where in the summertime where these are doing their thing. I'd love to show you that. But the minute they're strapped up, they will be generating in this type of position, but not in the optimum way because they're not tilting to find the sunlight. But to be honest, they could tilt in any way they want today and they wouldn't find it because it is horrible here. So anyway, let's have a little look back up at the house and we'll run through a few more things. So I'm just going to change this sealant that we used before. We kind of just temporarily sealed it all up with some silicone whilst we got this stuff from this duct seal from AC Cable Solutions. So yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I'll show you. I'm going to pop these little inserts out actually, just to make it a little bit more squashy, because we're just really packing out the duct so that all the sealant doesn't drop down. So I want to leave about 20mm down there. I think I can probably get one of them down there as well, just to give it that there. So there we go. So that's sealed that, and I've got space all the way around the outside of that to actually seal it up. So I'm then going to start the back, squirt all this stuff in. Around the back there, that's it. This is just such a nicer finish than trying to do it with silicone or anything like that. Proper job. Around the back there. So I've then still got my sponge somewhere. Oh. So dab, dab, don't wipe. Dab, don't wipe. That was the advice they gave me. I think you get the texture of the sponge as well on there, so it leaves a much nicer finish. Oops. Look at that beauty. It's like a putty. There we are, look at that. Beautiful. So yeah, that's much better. It's a much better kit than trying to do something with some silicone. So this is the final bit of outside filming we need to do, which me and Dan are very happy about because it is absolutely freezing and very wet out here. But you can see we've got these solar panels upon this roof here, and we've got 10 of the Perlite 455 watt panels. So that's 4.55 kilowatt peak on this property, on this roof here. And then we've got that added to the 2.4 down at the allotment. So that is a really large amount of solar power for a nice small property here. But at this time of year where we haven't got a lot of light anyway, we need every watt that we can to help a property like this run. We've obviously added the extra battery storage as well, which is going to help this property in the event of a power cut, which are quite common down here in Gulfland. So more power being produced by the solar, more battery capacity being stored, means that this property can run longer if there is a power cut in the depths of winter or even in the summertime. It's not unheard of in a place like this. So we've also installed bird protection here. There's plenty of places for birds to nest where we are, but we might as well install it whilst we're up there doing it, because the last thing you want is to be in bed and hearing those pigeons scratching around or doing all sorts of things when you're trying to get to sleep or very early in the morning. If we can keep them out from day one, that is always going to be the best solution. So those panels there feed down into that first DC isolator that we saw around near the Tesla Powerwalls and feeds its own power. Now that works completely separately to those trackers. So if there's a fault on the trackers or a fault on these ones, the other set of panels will still work absolutely fine. Or if these ones go into shade before the trackers do, then these ones can shut down and the Tesla Powerwall can still generate on those trackers, or vice versa. It means that everything's separated, meaning you've got more chance of generating more power. But now we'll have a little look inside and I'll show you the distribution board upgrade that we did, but also where the Tesla Powerwall backup gateway is. Let's have a look. So this is where our backup gateway is. So we've got the meter on the other side of this wall. So those tails come through from the meter into our Tesla Powerwall backup gateway. They then go through a fuse and a fuse carrier inside there, and then they go up into our brand new Proteus distribution board. Within that, we've got all the circuits for the house, plus we've got lots of extra circuits here because this property is going to have an extension, and putting in a larger distribution board, the cost is absolutely minimal because we've still got to install the distribution board, whether or not that's of this size or of the size that we've installed. The cost is only in the board, and that might be the difference of £20. So we've installed a nice large distribution board so that this property has got flexibility for, you know, potentially having an EV charger if they ever want in the future, or an air source heat pump, or just more things in the extension. We've got that spare capacity. All of those cables come down into this brand new header trunking, which allows us to dress them nice and neatly inside the board. We've got our local AC isolator for our Tesla Powerwall, and then we've got our generation meter just so we can provide a MCS certificate for the customer. We've then got our signature document holder, our start-stop procedure for the Tesla. We've actually included a DC cable run document because the DC cable run is going to be hidden. So to allow anyone doing any excavation works in the future, they can have a look and they know exactly where that cable runs. We've then also, as of today, updated the schematic to include the extra battery module. So all of that is there as per MCS guidelines, meaning that anyone that comes that isn't us, or even us in the future, we need a little refresher, we can have a look at those documents and we can see what's happening. This Tesla Backup Gateway is the part that allows the Tesla Powerwalls outside to run this house if there is a power cut. If the grid connection that comes in from that meter becomes unstable because of the voltage is fluctuating, or it's just at zero because there's been a power cut, there's been a line that's gone down through bad weather or anything like that, then this physically disconnects the property from the grid connection. That then, this has a communications cable to the Tesla Powerwalls. It informs them that there's been a grid outage, and those Tesla Powerwalls then know to run this property. So that inverter doesn't shut down inside the Tesla Powerwall as it would do if we didn't have this backup gateway. It continues to run to allow the Tesla Powerwalls to supply the lights, the cooker, everything else in this property, and keep the lights on and the internet and everything else, which in a place as remote as this is pretty vital when, you know, it could be a week before you get reconnected to the power. So that is a really intelligent piece, or a really important part of the kit. And it also meters what is coming into the property and what is going back out. So the battery knows, just in normal grid connected mode, when to tell the battery to charge and when to tell the battery to discharge. So this is kind of the brain, and the Powerwalls are kind of the muscle. So they work together to make sure this property is as efficient as possible to run this whole property. So you can see here that we've put all of this on this tile backer board, our hardy backer board that we always use. Now, it's overkill in terms of what we needed to do here, but the wall was kind of a little bit all over the place, and we needed to have a nice even surface to allow all of these components to kind of sit level with each other. So we've done that, and we've tried to squeeze it all over into this corner, because when this property has an extension, there's potentially going to be a doorway going through here. So we've taken into consideration how this property is potentially going to develop over time, and I think that's the difference sometimes when you get a company that is there just to install a battery, install solar, crash in, try and get it done as fast as possible, and a company that actually wants to know what's going to work best for you. And that's what we pride ourselves on. As I've said in many other videos, you can only ever compete on your quality. You can never really compete on price, because a company could have done this probably cheaper and just thrown the kit in wherever was easiest for them, and kind of told an unsuspecting customer that that's where stuff has to go. Whereas for ourselves, we undertook a lot of work to get the Powerwalls where we did, to get all of this looking neat and tidy like it does, but it certainly wasn't the easiest option. The easiest option would have been to put the Powerwalls on the end of that gable there and said, well, that's as far as away that they can be from the gateway, so it's just tough. Whereas we had to take the floor up upstairs, run the armoured cables all the way under the floor upstairs, drill out the wall where the Powerwalls are, all to make the cable route hidden as much as we could, but also to make sure that this system has longevity, so that the customer doesn't have to spend a couple of grand in a year's time when the extension starts to move things around, move cables around. We even moved an armoured cable around that was for a storage pump to make sure that it was out the way, ready for when the extension starts. It's not all about speed, it's not all about price. We have to try and work to people's budgets and get things installed correctly, but sometimes it's as little as an extra couple of days work will get it to a place where it has longevity in your property. We can never get it all 100% right. Things come up and you might need to change things in the future, but having that conversation is very important, and making sure that you choose an installer that wants to have that conversation. That's the biggest challenge sometimes, and that's always going to be us. Anyway, that's the sales pitch done. Let's have a little look at what else we've done at this property. So as part of this whole installation, and as part of our commitment to the whole PAS side of things, and even just now more in general the smoke alarm side of things, is we've installed this multi-sensor here with carbon monoxide. We've also got one upstairs as well, and we tried to cover the house to make sure that this property is secure. It hasn't got loads of different corridors and loads of different areas, so there wasn't that many alarms to install. But this is protecting downstairs. We've got a wood burner, so the risk of carbon monoxide is slightly increased. So we've installed that. We've installed it far enough away so there's no nuisance tripping or nuisance alarming. But it just means now this property is safe. We use the Eco ones all the time, and they've got a 10-year lithium battery backup inside, mains powered 10-year lithium battery backup. And that all just means that the customer doesn't need to do anything with this head apart from test it to make sure it's working now and again, but doesn't need to change this head within the 10 years. The 10-year, or change the battery within the 10 years. This should last the full time and full lifespan of a normal smoke alarm, which is a 10-year lifespan. After 10 years, this head will be changed, and by doing that change, the battery is automatically changed as well. So there we go. That is another install wrapped up. I thought we'd just recap on what we've actually got on this job. So we've got these 2 Tesla Powerwall 3s sat up at a height where we can reduce any flooding risk, but the Tesla Powerwalls have that increased ability to not be affected if water does come up into and over the seals for the actual Powerwall, which is a really good feature for a property like this. Got 2 of them, so we've got 27 kilowatt hours of usable battery storage capacity. We've got an 11.04 kilowatt inverter in there. We've got a 5 kilowatt export limit on it. Got 2 strings of solar panels, one on the house, which is 10 455 watt panels. We've then got a second string on some solar trackers, which are 6 400 watt panels, which is 2.4 kilowatts. Both of those go into the Powerwall 3 and are on separate MPPTs. We've then got a main 16mm armoured cable that runs through the house to hide that cable as much as possible and pops out into the brand new Proteus distribution board via a local AC isolator in there and generation meter. We've got that brand new Proteus distribution board where we've done a full test of the property. We've then got a backup gateway, which is putting the house into backup mode when the grid is unstable or is lost, which is quite common in a rural area like this. That is then using this capacity in here. The customer is able to set that minimum charge level so that the batteries don't find themselves in a backup situation and being completely empty, which is crucial for any sort of backup system. We've planned a cable route and left capacity in the MPPTs for when the property gets an extension. What else we've got an earth rod behind me. We've got everything on this. It is
ginger biscuit.
Yeah, and we've got a ginger biscuit. So we've got so much on this property, and I think what the key thing is that I want to really end this video on is fitting this sort of equipment isn't just screwing equipment to the wall and getting your money and shooting off. It's the relationships that you build with customers to chat to them about whether or not it's worth expanding their system or whether or not they'll be wasting the money. Chatting to them about where the equipment is going to go because they may have future plans over the next 5-10 years for the property. Increasing the safety of the property by putting smoke alarms in. Working through problems, advising properly on what is required and using your professional judgment to say that something's not worth doing or to really push for something that you really do think is worth doing. That's the difference between getting an installation company that cares and one that is all about the money. And we are certainly the former. So if you do want an installation like this and where you want solar PV, battery storage, EV charging, and you want to chat through what's going to be best for you and for your family or your business, then why not drop us a message? If you've got any questions about this specific install, then drop them in the comments and I'll come back to as many as I can. Thank you very much for watching the video, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.